technical terms, we should be live. So, welcome, Rick. Thanks for being here with me.
It is recording in case it isn't, and we can always throw it on later.
Yeah. I mean, I have the whole recording. I'm going to have to do some editing because I've been in here for the last 5 minutes. But yeah, I think we're good to go. Yeah,
so this is a benchmark for us. So this is IG Hoppy Hour merged with Zoom. And there's a lot of guests we haven't had on yet because they're spread across the country. One person's one place or another. So tonight is very special. So before we bring our guests on, I want to bring a little background. This is a very, very special, like almost historical episode. Tonight we'll be having on Rodg and Geoff from Oak Park Brewing, based out of Sacramento, California, and Mr. Theodore Mack II. He is the son to Mr. Theodore Mack Sr, who is the first African-American brewery owner in the United States. So very excited about that. I'm going to do this intro statement, and then we'll have them on, and then we'll have some beers and get some questions with them. We're drinking their beer right now, which is the People's Beer. So on August 28th of this year, Oak Park Brewing Co. released the People's Beer in honor of the legacy of Mr. Theodore Mack Sr., the first African-American brewery owner. Mr. Mack picked cotton in the fields of Alabama and rose to become a civil rights giant. In 1970, he purchased the People's Beer Brewing Co. To provide employment opportunities in minority communities and brew beer for the people. People's Beer.
Yes, sir.
Nice and crisp. So Oak Park Brewing has partnered with son, Mr. Ted Mack II, to create this historic collaboration. Mr. Mack Jr., or the second, says his family is overjoyed by the People's Beer collaboration being a continuation of their legacy. Mr. Mack was the leader of CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality. He served on multiple civil rights organizations and led the group to 1963 March on Washington. Oak Park Brewing is honored to continue the story of the People's Beer, which we're going to talk about tonight. We want to tell you the right story, and we got the right guy to tell it, says Rodg, the owner of the brewery, who we're going to have on in a moment. Today, Mr. Mack's story is commemorated and will be heard again and again with every can. With the help of Mr. Mack II and the brewery, followed the original recipe when brewing People's Beer. People's Beer is a light, crisp lager that you could drink year-round. I'm drinking it end of November. It's great.
It's good. It's very good.
Yeah, and the batch was originally released again in August, but on October will be the 50th celebration of People's Beer. So it'll be 50 years since Senior started. People's Beer will be distributed throughout the Sacramento area with plans of future to reach in the coming months. Mr. Mack II said his father brewed People's Beer for all the people. People's Beer is not a black beer or white beer. It's the People's Beer. So Oak Park Brewing's mission is to get people beer to the people. So without further ado, I'm not sure if they're on already, Steve.
Yep, I got Ted and I got Rodg coming in now with Geoff. So let's bring them in.
Awesome.
I'm gonna unmute you guys, so just bear with me 1 second. Here we go. Bear with us right here.
It is a first run. This is impressive. So far, so good. The ship is sailing.
Can you guys hear us?
Yeah. Let me kill this pipe. I'm on another, checking out this. Geoff will be rolling in a sec.
Okay, solid.
What's up, guys? Whoa. Mr.
What's
Mack,
going
what's
on?
up?
Hey, doing well. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah,
I got
absolutely.
somebody I want you to see. Yeah.
No, we're on the one.
Here you go, Mr. Mack. Oh, he stepped off.
Where Mr. Mack go?
He left.
Everybody else, who the other two guys?
This is Steven and
What's up?
Rick.
What's up, Steven and Rick?
So we're doing
What's going on?
a podcast today. So we're talking about the people's beer. So this is Kevin Johnson.
Hello, everybody.
The number,
Hello.
we call him number 6.
You got number? Okay.
Number 6.
6. Okay.
What up, Mr. Mack?
Mr. Mack,
How you doing, man?
look at you. Look at you. Look at all dapper over there.
Gotta do what I do.
Look at that.
You're looking fresh.
Look how tight all that is. Boy. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you too.
Take it easy.
All right.
All right,
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it.
Awesome.
no problem. Thank you guys for having us, man, and letting us join your platform and just sharing our story, and Mr. Mack's story, and the people's beer story, and his dad's legacy and story.
It's incredible. It really is. And honestly, I have to say I'm a little ashamed that I didn't do that research prior and didn't know about it. So to me, it's an absolute, and I can attest for Rick as well. We can't thank you guys enough for being here. It's super important, and we obviously want to share that legacy, and let's talk.
Cool.
First and foremost,
we rolling, or is it we
we're
kicking
rolling.
it?
You guys are actually live on our Instagram.
Okay.
We got our
Take
beers
care,
here.
ladies.
There we go.
Yeah.
So let's first cheers to everybody.
Yeah. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for being on. This is a first for us. We've never had a multi-stream here, so
There we go.
This is exciting. Rick, why don't you take it away?
So before we had you guys officially on, we did the backstory of, Mr. Mack Sr.'s story and Oak Park Brewing. But, I guess, 2020 marks the 50th anniversary of People's Brewing Co. We did the background. So I guess my question is, if anyone that's on the Zoom right now could tell us, what was reason for beer to be his legacy? What was his love for beer? For where did that start? I guess we want to start from the beginning.
Okay, the love for beer, actually, he was a civil rights worker. He was a leader, a giant in the civil rights in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And after King got killed, there were riots not like we did not have here. We thought we had riots here, but back in the day, we had tanks going down the street. It was a little different. So my father knew that, okay, we had the right to vote, but in order for you to have true power, you have to have economic power. And so he started looking more into business. And it just so happened as he was making the transition from social work, and they kind of dogged him out there, had them train a lot of white social workers, and they would promote them above my father. My father said, if you do it again, I'm gonna quit. They did it again, he quit. And so then he ended up working in the manufacturing at A.O. Smith, which was a body, they made the steel frame of the cars. And when he went there, a lot of people knew him as the civil rights leader and a college graduate. So they were like, why are you here? And they used to pick on him, but he was there to feed his family. One day he came home and there was John Wyndham. If you found John Wyndham in your research, that was the CEO of Pabst Blue Ribbon. And he at our door waiting on my father. And he asked my father, if he would come down to the brewery, he had something to show him. And my father was a man not to be messed with. And he said, listen, I just want to let you know that I'm not a house N-word, meaning that I'm a man to be reckoned with. And he said, I know exactly who you are, Mr. Mack. And, he's seen my father laying in front of the buses. He's seen my father when there were riots. He's the one that got on TV and said, hey, we are burning the stores in our neighborhoods, but tomorrow when you get hungry, you're going to be going to their stores in their neighborhoods and giving them your money. So what makes sense? Burn down your stores or go to their neighborhoods and give you money after what you saw? King got killed and all this is going on. So he said, I know who you are, Mr. Mack. he gave my father a tour of the brewery because he was not only the CEO of Pabst Blue Ribbon, but he also was the chairman of the board for the Chamber of Commerce. He was on the Chamber of Commerce. He was president. And so they decided that after the riots, we have to do something to make a change. Just like in the United States right now, we have to do something to make a change. So what they decided to do after he gave my father a tour, he said, "How many blacks did you see?" And my father said, "Less than on one fingers on one hand." And he said, "Is that fair?" He said, "No." My father said, "No, you have 30–40% of blacks in Milwaukee. You should increase your employees, black employees, to that." And he said, "Well, Mr. Mack, that's why I want to talk to you. We need somebody special. And I want you to be the man that integrate Pabst Blue Ribbon." Well, my father ended up hiring 300 people. Not just all black, he hired whites too, because he said, even though I could have hired all blacks, I am a Christian and I'm gonna be fair and still help out some of them, even though they didn't help us out much during that time. But that's the kind of guy he was. And I remember he telling me when the plant broke down one time, it was late. They had a shift coming in and they didn't get it fixed until the shift was about to be done, okay? Now, they couldn't take out the beer to get on the shelves. If your beer is not on the shelves, what happens? You lose space, you lose market share. So my father now is the only black manager. He's the only manager that will sign on the dotted line, okay, in the overtime. A lot of the white managers said, well, now this end is gonna get his because, you gotta talk to Wyndham to do that. You just signed it, nobody else would do it. So my dad came home, told my mother, hey, guess what? I want to let you know that this is probably my last day at Pabst Blue Ribbon because I made a decision, but it was the right one. So he went into the office the next day, went into his office the next day, and the secretary of the CEO came running in there and said, Mr. Wyndham, I want to speak to you right away. Well, cool. He went into his office. He said, Matt, take a seat. And my father said, no, I'll take this standing up. And he said, is this your signature? He said, yes, it is. Why did you do that? Well, the reason I did that is because if I didn't sign it for the overtime, you would not have those beer on the shelf. And that's how your family and my family get fed. And he told my father this, that's why I hired you. You're the only one in this company that has the balls to stand up to me. I told you, I knew what kind of man you were. And so he gave my father full reign to learn everything about the brewery industry. That's how he got into the beer industry.
That's incredible.
That's it, man. Hey, more in the book. He wrote a book and I wrote a book about him. It should be coming out early part of next year. His book is called The Country Boy, Memoirs of Theodore Mack Sr. And I wrote Man Unafraid, Reflections of My Father, which gave a little bit more background and a lot of the details that he left out of his book that I found a lot of stack of his paperwork and notes, articles and all that. And that's all in that book. But, what I'm happy about, to be quite honest, is that, and I think you might get into it, is that this is the 50th year anniversary of when he brought people's beer. See, this is not the first brewery he tried to get either, okay? He had a bigger one. He was gonna make a big play back then in 1969, 1970, that time, when there were no blacks doing what he's about to do. Where there was this brewery that there was an antitrust suit that was against Pabst Blue Ribbon. So they had to divest themselves of part of their brewery, and that part was Blatt's. Blatt's brewery was available, but my father's a manager now, right? Mm-hmm. So he gets all the information from the white secretaries, because he had his own secretary, but he went and talked to the white secretary so he can get all the information on what's going on. And he ended up writing his own proposal. They didn't know it. His own proposal. So when it was the day that they had, okay, Now the bids are going to be opened up for Paps. That's the judge. It's the judge doing it now. So the last group that came was this group called United Black Enterprise. They never heard of them or never seen them. That's what my dad created. And he wrote a $9 million proposal that was approved by a bank in New York City. And he was the last one to bid. And when he bid it, it was $9 million.
Wow.
He won the bid. So his whole thing right then was, I want a seat at the table. If we buy this brewery, it's big enough, it's way bigger than the one he ended up with, that he would have the seat at the American beer table. He would have been head up with Pabst, Heinemann, and all of them. That was his dream. And he says, I'm going to do it. Yeah, was it fear? Yeah, he said, he kind of took back. But my dad wasn't, he was a very faithful man to God. He believed in God. He learned that from his mother, who her mother was a slave, okay? And so she taught him about God, and he believed that, I can do all things through Christ. It's like me in my house. I'm a deacon in the church. I teach my sons, I teach my daughter to believe it. Not look at a person at the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That's what he believed in. So he made this bold move, and they stopped him. It was systemic racism that stopped them. How can you win a bid and then they kind of let G. Heinemann, who we all know about today, let G. Heinemann up their bid to 10.8 million, and then wouldn't let them up their bid. My dad had inside information, so he told me, son, that whole operation was there probably worth a few $1 million, more than what they talking about. He said 40. But he said it was we could have went and got that money easily, but they wouldn't allow them time to do that. So they basically took it from them. And so then he said, okay, now we know what we can do. But we also know what kind of country we live in. And I'm actually writing a book right now. It's another book. It's called Empowering the Kings of the Next Generation, Black Mentorship. And I thought I was just going to be talking about mentorship and all that, but it has me dig deep into the history of America. Now I understand. I even understand why people now, these two sides are hitting each other. That I could tell you a story about that will blow your mind. But my dad taught me how to think for myself. He said, never look at TV, look at the news and think that's the truth. He said, because in that class that they took me to for critical thinking, they said that the powers to be determine what you see on the news. And that those who are going to be ruling or those in power are not to fall for that which is in the news. Because that's to control the people. Because I'm going to just tell you the story right quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he started out at Ohio State playing for Woody Hayes. His brother died. He went back home, be with the family. And then he reapplied, ended up at Marquette University. He was a leader, civil rights leader and all that. So he really didn't start that yet, but he was a leader in the campus. They saw he was a smart, driven Black man. So this professor came to him and said, you know what, you should be in my class. And my father said, man, that class is never open. Every time, we're supposed to go for the classes, that class is closed from day one. Every time I went, it's closed. He said, well, you go there tomorrow at such and such time. Guess what? The professor was there. And he looked, my father said, it's closed. And he said, somebody just dropped out. Let Mr. Mack in and close it up after him. Thank you. So my father went to the class and he looked around the room. Those were the heavy hitters of the campus. Either their parents owned businesses, manufacturing plants, this or that, or they were in government. all the heavy hitters, those who gonna be making the decisions for everybody else. They walk into class, sit down, professor goes up in front of them, asks them a question. So they said, this is the class everybody said we got to take. So they were intrigued. And he said, who discovered America? And they were like, what? You mean, why did everybody tell us to come do this? So they were giving all these different facts on Christmas, Columbus, and all that, right? And then after they got done, the professor just kind of laughed at them and said, you're supposed to be the smart of the smart. You're supposed to be elite. He said, but you just regurgitated the propaganda lie that we put out there for the masses. He said, because you got to understand that America is basically a right country. We try to follow pseudo-Christian principles. But he says, but in order for the powers to be to control, we got to change people's concept of right. If they go by that Christian right, it's going to be hard for us to control. So they wrote two things. He wrote two letters on the board. One is a C and one is an L. And he said, by these two words, these letters represent is how they're going to control you for the next 100 years, maybe. Because in order for those who really in control to control you, they got to have you looking at each other, not at them. So my father told me those two words. And when I mentor people, this is part of the mentorship. I tell them to think for themselves. And when I tell you these two words, you're going to see why we're going through what we're going through today. And then you're going to understand how foolish we are as a people. Because we just been fooled. We just played, the whole country just played into what they told my father over 60 years ago. He was in college. Okay, he didn't get the brewery till he was in his 30s. Okay, well, the C stands for conservative. The L stands for liberal. So what they had to get you from what is right and wrong and get you into the tribalism of them versus us. That means it doesn't matter if it's right. It doesn't matter if it's wrong. It's our side or your side. And if you look at what's going on today, that's all it is. Because they could be lying. They could be killing folks. And it doesn't matter because our side, their side. There's no right and wrong. They're always right. I mean, we're always right. They're always wrong. And then we put in the racial thing. And I'm writing this book here. It's just, I could tell you stories about this country and it made people's skin crawl. Because we believe the propaganda, not the truth. But my father, even with all the knowledge he poured into us, because when we sat down at home and when we would sometimes look at the TV, he used to call it the idiot box. He said, because you look at that, you're being programmed. He said, basically, being in business, son, that is a marketing tool. They just watching the program to get you the commercial. Because the commercial is going to get you to go out there and buy. That's how the game plays. And so I was like, wow, this is just too crazy, Pops. But he just poured all this knowledge out. So when it came to people's beer and they stopped him, Dad would not be denied. He told them, I'll be back. Yeah, he told them, I'll be back. He was determined. And remember, Wyndham let him learn everything in the brewery business. And that's exactly what my father did. He learned everything in the brewery business. And then after they stole that from him, broke his heart, you know, he said I remember in his book when I read it, he was talking about, we gonna carry ourselves with class, with intelligence, because they want us to be yelling, hollering, screaming, so they can put that out there and say, this is what they are. He said, but that's not what we are. We're businessmen. We handle it. We actually won, but they just took it from us. Okay? And And so what my father did was he said, okay, our time will come. And he used to get all these other offers from these breweries. You want to buy our brewery, you want to buy this brewery. But my father already knew the business. So most of everything that was brought to him was junk. They were just trying to fool him, getting them to buy that junk for a high price. And my dad wouldn't go for it. But then there came this guy talking about this little brewery in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And my father said, wow. He said, any blacks there? They said, no, except for some college kids. And he said, well, I got a family, man. You know, can't be sitting about family to a town of just whites, especially a town that just voted for George Wallace, who was maybe Trump wanted to be a Wallace wannabe because that's who he acted like. And so, but my father said it intrigued him. And actually, he had another opportunity at that time. He could have went back to Pabst Blue Ribbon because that's how good he was. He offered him a job back. Wyndham offered him a job back. So he had a choice to make. Am I going to go back to Pabst, or I'm going to check out this new brewery? But he says something about this new brewery because Dad always wanted to own. If you own, then you can give jobs, and then you can decide your own future. It wasn't a big seat at the table like he would have had if they would have got that other brewery. But he was a big vision kind of guy. And so he went to check it out. He said he liked everything he saw, but he knew he was not an engineer. So guess what? He called up Wyndham. And Wyndham said, Mac, I owe you one. Meaning that, yeah, I was part of that when they stole the brewery and all that. Yeah. I know what we did. You know? He said, but I owe you one. He sent his best engineers. He sent his brewmaster to People's Beer so they can check it out. Not only they check it out, they tighten up some things and said, yeah, you can do this. And so that's how my father ended up in the beer industry. And that's how he got People's Beer. Now, it was hard getting it, but you know, there's systemic racism going on back then, as it probably is here now. You know, probably it is, but you know, you got to fight on. My dad would never quit, and he would not let the color of his skin dictate who he was. It goes all the way back when he was in Alabama. You know, he started picking cotton. And when they told him that he wasn't good enough, he wouldn't believe it. When he finished high school, he said, you know what? The law says I can go to school. So he went to Alabama University to try to get in, put his application. They balled it up, threw it in the trash. You're not wanted here. He went to Auburn University, got the same kind of treatment. When he got home a couple of weeks later, guess what? He found out all of a sudden he volunteered for the Army. How did he volunteer for the Army when he never sent no information to him? One of them universities volunteered my father for the Army. But did he go hide from his responsibility? No. He went, they tricked him, and they probably hoping he died, but my father went and fought for this country in the Korean War. And when he saw stuff happening there, like these men, him, my father, and the black man went out there and they fight. They come back. It's around the holiday time. These new white recruits come in and they got these veterans, battlefield tested veterans, black veterans, cleaning up after these white guys that just learned how to wipe their behinds in the military. They get leave, the black dudes got to stay there and clean. And my father wasn't happy about that. I know he could have got court-martialed. He said, son, you know me. If I see somebody's doing somebody wrong, I'm gonna let them know. So he's arguing with the officer. Not supposed to do that. Arguing with a white officer too, really not supposed to do that. A general comes by, what's going on here? And he finds out. He pulls the white officer to the side and start pointing his finger at him, you know. And then all of a sudden, the black soldiers got their lead because the general knew these dudes went out there shedding blood for the United States. These dudes didn't do nothing yet. But my father played football, and he said, wait, I can play football in the Army? So he playing with NFL players and all that, but they said, you good, man. Yo, you know that you can go up north, them Midwest universities want some black players up there. They'll give you a full ride. What? So my father said, that's what I'm gonna do then. So on his time to discharge, he's supposed to get his discharge papers signed. And guess what the Army said? You are a great individual. We want you to lead because you show leadership skills. So we want you to be an officer in the Army. My father said, no. He said, I get discharged. I did my tour duty. I'm gonna leave on my discharge date. They said, we're not gonna sign it. We're gonna send you to officer school. Okay. He said, my dad told me, son, they didn't know who I was. Yes. Dad, when that day came for discharge and he got approval from Ohio State and Michigan, he got approved and there to go to both universities. He chose Ohio State because that's where his family moved to. And when it came time for him to leave, Dad said, I just took my duffel bag and I got on the train. He said a couple of weeks later, my discharge papers arrived. So he was the kind of guy that he gonna do what he said. We used to call him the wild bull from Midway. He didn't fear nobody but God. So when he went up to Oshkosh by himself on the day when he sold those, because they had an opportunity to buy People's Beer, but now that other loan was gone, so they had to go do a loan again. Every step of the way, this system tried to stop it. But just because my father was politically active and he put a lot of those white politicians in office because they had the black vote. So it was payback time. So when they lost his information in Washington, D.C., he called up the congressman and the senator. And they took a flight to Washington. And guess what happened? All of a sudden, they found the paperwork. All of a sudden, oh, now this is going to work. Well, okay. Now he's going to get the SBA loan. But when they sent him the loan, guess what, guys? He didn't have to have 10%. You know how you got to bring part of the money in every loan, 10%, sure. 20%, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They told him 50%. And he was so angry. He said, because I'm black, they thought I can't do this. But my dad was a very smart individual, usually the smartest one in the room, black or white. And he said, okay. He said, I just got angry. And that's when they did the stocks. He sold stocks in two places, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Oshkosh, Wisconsin. He really wasn't expecting much from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, because he probably going to be the only black face up there. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, yeah, he thought he was going to sell something there. So he told everybody, hey, I'm going by myself because I want them to see this intelligent black man step on the scene by himself, dressed up. He said, boy, I had on my mohair suit. I was sharp. He said, I was representing right. He went up there by himself because he wasn't scared of nobody. Okay, he fought in the Korean War. When we did move up there, he went to talk to the sheriff and said, I know you know the hotheads. I know you know the racist ones who think they're gonna do something, but do understand I'm an Army veteran. And if they come and burn a cross in my yard, he said, I'm not calling you. I'm not calling the police. I'm calling the coroner to get that dead body off my property. And they believed what he said. But anyhow, he went up there and he said he was so shocked that it was filled with all these white folks. And he gave his speech and they were buying that stock like crazy. Because see, the rumor had it that he was gonna fire all the white folks and put all black folks in there. But he did not do that. He said, listen, he said, money's green, baby. He said, these people right here, they were doing the job and they did nothing wrong. He said, so they're gonna continue to do the job. He said, I'm the president of People's Beer. I will say who gets fired and who gets hired. And it's not gonna be just because you black and white. It's gonna be because you handling your business. And so he got respect. And it was amazing when they had the grand opening, they had all these politicians, white politicians, the chairman of the board, the Chamber of Commerce, they all were out there. And they were just giving these great speeches about Pops. They're like, this man right here is what the American dream is all about. How can you go from picking cotton to actually buying a brewery, one of the biggest businesses in the city? And you definitely know all about the business because Dad knew about the business. He said this, and one of the politicians said this, man, I hope there's a big article written about this man because this world needs to know about Ted Mack. So my father was one that fought all the way to the end. Now, it was just a 2-year journey with that because, they didn't want him to win. But that's why I'm glad that I'm looking at Rodg and looking at Geoff right now, because this is my father's vision continuing in a way that he wanted. Now, if you look at that picture right there with Rodg and Geoff, you see white and black working together, okay? That's what my father wanted. He used to say this. He said, you know what? I love all people. He said, because there's some black jokers I don't like and there's some white jokers I sure don't like. He said, but I love all people. He said, the problem is they just don't love me. He would love what's going on right here with People's Beer, the relaunch. So I know I talk a lot.
Listen, this helps everybody understand because again, I could attest that I didn't have much knowledge on any of this. So having this is learning, and we only get better as people as if we learn. So it's a story that I can honestly say that I take with great admiration to the fact that like this is beyond any realm of my scope, and it's fascinating. So
wow, thank you, man.
Beyond.
This is just, it's a timing thing too, because when I look at what's going on in this country, it's sad to me. It would have broke my father's heart, but he wouldn't have been sitting back. He would have been telling those young folks that, because he was a civil rights worker, so he was marching and doing all that stuff too. He would have showed them how to do it right. Not just tweet everybody and come out there, because then you're going to have the people because back then they knew the FBI and all that was trying to destroy the movement. So they had their security, they know who was on their side and who wasn't. Young folks just tweeted, we're going to be out there at such and such time, we're going to run out there. So what happens is, you got to be smart. Because first you had a peaceful march. And why do you think they had all that violence afterwards? That was planned. Planned from both sides. Bet you had some Proud Boys out there too. But back in my dad's day, you wouldn't have had them out there. Because they knew what they were doing. That's why they said nonviolent. Because the very thing that you seen happen and how they twisted it, that's what they're gonna do. So my father thought through things. He taught me to think through it. I told my kids about it before it happened. I was sitting there watching. I said, watch this. I said, you see them waiting around and all that? That's another agenda right there. And they're going to use that agenda. They did the same thing to Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King had security. There's a black guy that had security from that windows up there. He would knew who was out there. And what did the police do? They moved him that time. Oh, well, let's move you out of the way. You're not going to be signed over there today because we're going to kill him. Or we're going to use, or we're going to infiltrate Malcolm X people and say, hey, let's just make a confusion. Get you fighting each other, divide and conquer. That was a great thing and gave them opportunity to get them killed. But they never want you to know who really did it. They never, because hey, if you really want to know, it was a terrible thing when the Germans did what they did to the Jews, right? That was 6 million. They never talk about the many more millions that were killed in slavery. They don't talk about in one country how 1 to 20 million was killed when they decided to split up Africa amongst the European nations for wealth and greed. And if you want to know what usually happens in this country, it's about wealth and greed. If you look at what's going on now, we got this great billionaire as president. Does he care about everybody? I'll let the people even on his side answer that. Or is he perpetuating hate? So my whole thing here is, you know, my father used to say, this is not a black beer or a white beer. This is a people's beer. And that's what we're bringing to people today, a people's beer. And it's good.
It's really good.
This recipe right here.
Have a sip.
Yeah, it's 50 years old, baby. You know what I'm saying? It's actually older than that. The people's beer been around for 100 years. It's just when my father brought it. And when he brought it, it was the same recipe and all that. It's just somehow I got my hands on it. And then I gave it to those young men you see right there, and they did what they do. And I am so proud of them. They found everything that needed to be done. They even found the company to grow the yeast to make it happen because it wasn't here no more, but they grew it. So you can be drinking that beer. This is people's beer, baby. This is gonna be worldwide.
This is a great segue to asking both you, Rodg and Geoff, how does all of this resonate for you guys and kind of starting up Oak Park and where you're going, what direction you're leading toward, and, you know, tell us a little bit about your story over there.
Okay, so first off, can you guys hear us okay?
Yes, we can hear you good.
Cool. So yeah, and we got to apologize for all the madness. We had a lot of stuff going on today, so we had to move around. And we try to hold to our word. We had a few different people coming through, and we just had to accommodate them. So, you know, definitely forgive us for that. But as far as what's going on with the people's beer, in my, you know, it's like, in my words, it's amazing. You know, I'm a home brewer. You know, I've been home brewing for like close to like 16 years. But when I started doing the history of, you know, Black-owned breweries, Ted Mack Sr., his name kept popping up on the internet. You know, in the libraries, I couldn't find any information on Black-owned breweries. And if you think about it, 250, 300 years ago, and even before then, you know, we were doing all of this stuff, you know, wine, beer, cheese, bread,
Right.
domestic stuff, yada, yada, yada. So for us to be participating in this collaboration with the Mack estate, man, I'm elated. You know, it's like, I'm glad that I'm a part of it. And I never thought that I would be sitting down with Mr. Mack Jr., you know, and like creating the rebirth of this beer. So I'm stoked, man, to be a part of this. Yeah.
It's amazing.
I'm just honored to be a part of it, and every time I listen to Mr. Mack speak, I learn something new. He opens my eyes to something new, and I can only imagine what it would have been like to speak with his dad and pick his brain on the brewing process and how they used to do things back at Pabst and at People's Brewing Company. So, you know, we're very privileged to be a part of this, and we just want to continue that legacy and put that word out there across the country and just and globally. Yeah, and just really, you know, push the story of it, and now's the right time to do it. And we just feel that, you know, it's got a great message behind it, and it's about equality and accepting people for who they are and how they are and how they act, and just coming together as a nation, a community, just as people, and be very supportive of each other and get rid of the hate, because that has no place in our society.
Amen.
Amen.
And agreed. I want to bring up what Weathered Souls is doing with the Black is Beautiful movement, and you know, they jump started this. And would you? I know you want to make this go global, as far as like that concept, which, you know, altogether was, and Black is Beautiful. Would you guys consider maybe, you know, to spread the word, have like a similar recipe out to make it viral that way, or that's something you want to like steer away from?
You know, we haven't fully discussed that in detail too much. We did participate in the Black is Beautiful campaign, and Rod reached out and got a hold of them very early on, and it was something we were very supportive of. And it's an option that we on this one. We have also started talking to distribution companies across the country in Wisconsin and in Georgia and Tennessee, and we're looking to hopefully start shipping beer out to these other states in the country, as well as contract brewing with breweries in those areas to help push it out further, right? So instead of us shipping from California to Wisconsin, we partner with a brewery in Wisconsin, have them contract through this recipe, and then they can distribute it from there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
You want to continue, Rick? All right. Well, you know, it's funny because it's not funny per se, but it's just an interesting concept to think about how this, you know, this beer gets distributed. But I read this article, and it was from Will Cleveland, and it was a Black and Brew, New York's craft beer industry has a diversity problem. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this and kind of just get your take on all this. While 12.2% of the U.S. population is Black, a 2018 study by the Brewers Association found that Black people made up a median of 1.8% of brewery positions and just 1% of craft brewery owners in America, right? Of 434 breweries in New York, just 3 are Black owned. Both Harlem Brewing, Harlem Blue are contract breweries, and Brooklyn's Daleview and Beer is the only on-site Black-owned brewery in the state. What are some steps that you guys think that increasing those number of Black-owned breweries, maybe like elaborate on setbacks, change? Is there a positive direction that we're going toward?
I think so, with this right here. Because you gotta let people know what's possible. Because some people have been hindered. When you're hindered so much and the door has been closed, my dad was about opening doors. He didn't care.
Right.
I'm about opening doors. And as this opens and the story, the books come out and all that, then people are gonna say, hey, it was done before, we can do this. And I believe that when I mentor people, a lot of times they don't know, they have these big dreams, but they don't know how to get there. So I show them how to get there. Once they see there's a pathway to their dream, a spark goes off in their heart. And then all of a sudden, these young kids, even if they come from the ghetto, that people have said they have no hope, those young ones that have no hope, all of a sudden, they're achieving greatly. Then you see them in college. Then there's no holding them back. Why? Because somebody believed in them and showed them what they can do. So even in this industry, once they see what can be done, and it's not just a few here and there that step out, it always takes pioneers. But that's why Dad wanted to do it at a bigger level. When they see this, we looking to do it what? At a bigger level. And then you say, it's possible. Once you know it's possible, when they break the certain records in athletics, then all of a sudden you see those records fall like that, pop, 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 pop. It may be the 4-minute mile. Okay. Once it was broken, what happened after that? People kept breaking it. Why? Because now it's possible. Then it was impossibility. The world is flat. Until they proved it wasn't, they believed that, but it was a lie. That you, because of your color, you can't make it, or you're not this, you're not that. Well, I know history. I know better than that. I know that the richest man in the world, period, outside what I read in the Bible, in the known history that I have from this mankind and outside of the Bible, it was this brother from Africa. He used to fund Western societies. He was too nice with his money because he exposed the wealth of Africa. And then eventually the European nations in the Conference of Berlin decided to split Africa up between themselves. King Leopold, who was truly evil, when he got a hold of the Congo and he found the rubber plants and all of that, so they needed workers, right? Why not the citizens of the country? Whole country enforced labor. You know how they forced them to do more production? They would cut off their hands. Don't make sense. But when you see a person walking around with no hands, then you say, we're gonna do whatever it takes. And then they said estimated what? They can't even give a number. They like between 2 and 20 million people died of that in their occupation. You think they cared? Because, I'll just put it like this, because Black lives did not matter. The only thing that mattered is profit. If you look at the capitalism today, I'm a capitalist myself, but I'm a capitalist with a heart. Some don't care. What's going on with this country? We got a virus, people dropping like flies. And then there's other people saying it's fake news. When you yourself said, oh, this is bad, this is in the air. But they use the same kind of ploys that they used back then. They lie. It's called propaganda. Hitler used it. And if you think about what our President Trump did, it's not original, because I know history. Make America great. You know where that came from? His hero, Tricky Dick. Make America great. It's nothing original. Use the same kind of cold words that they used back then. Me being black, I know them. When we see him, that's why we voted like we did, because even though he offered us them billions of dollars, he gonna do this black initiative and all that. Oh, you ain't gonna do that. You gonna try to throw money at us now? After 4 years of what you did, we've been watching you. That's why we went out to vote. Because my father said power comes in the vote and the paper. He said, you gotta learn how to vote with your ballot and vote with your dollar. We voted with our ballot. But we're gonna come together as a nation. One thing we gotta admit, admit it and quit it.
Yeah.
You know, if you never admit your wrongs, you're always gonna be cursed with it. If a woman is raped, and if she holds on to that hate and all that stuff that he's done to her, is that man gonna be hurt? No. You know who's gonna be hurt? That woman for the rest of her life, because that pain sticks with you. Somebody does you wrong, and you hate them because they did you wrong. It's not gonna be you it's not gonna be them that's hurt, it's gonna be you.
Yeah.
You gotta forgive them. I have to forgive some people who did me wrong. And really, it wasn't for me. It was for me to be here today. It's for these people I mentor. It's for these people I speak to. It's not for me. But out of my pain came my gain. My dad taught me these principles, and I'm just doing what he would have me to do. Now, I'm an okay speaker, but I'm not a Ted Mack like he was, okay? I'm not the wild bull, you know. I might be the T-Bear or something like that, okay?
Well, I got to say, if your father, I mean, I think you're an amazing speaker, and I would have loved to have, seen your father in person, because he sounds like an unbelievable man.
Yeah, he was somebody that, I'll put it like this. They say, walk in my shoes. Those shoes I couldn't fit, man. The burden of those shoes was hard for me until I learned to be who I am. And I learned to walk in my shoes. I can walk in a trailblazer like him. He's like a shooting star. If you hold on to, you get in the tail of a shooting star, you get burnt up. But if you watch a shooting star from afar, it's glorious.
Amen.
So all I'm doing now is making sure people can watch my dad from afar, his legacy. And it's about us as Americans coming together. That's what he wanted. When he went up to Oshkosh, he made friends like that.
Well, honestly, I got to tell you, this has been beyond enlightening, and we can't be any more excited for you guys. And wow. We honestly hope that this does continue, and we spread the people's beer, because
thank you, bro.
Absolutely fantastic. I hate to cut it short. We are running about 1 minute left on this interview. What do you guys have left for plans? If you can kind of wrap it up in a
few
guys
seconds. Talk. I've been talking.
Yeah. Where to find you? Where to come get you guys? Handles, hashtags, anything you could throw out there.
We're just we're honored to be a part of this movement and take breweries and Black ownership businesses to progress the industry. Michael Jackson Foundation just came out. The Brewers Association has scholarships for people of color. So I think the industry has realized that it's been very non-diverse over the last 20, 30 years. And it's realizing that there's value, there's importance, and it's important for the industry to move forward to include everyone. And that's something we focus on at Oak Park, is inclusion in the community, and we just try to do everything we can to make everyone feel welcome, comfortable, and feel safe when they come here, and they feel like they're a part of something. So, I think we need more of that in the industry. And I think, as long as we all continue to push forward on that, you'll see great things change in the next year or two. So.
Yeah. So, and in closing, you guys will put up all of our tags, and my thing is, we can always be better. Like right now, you have 4 or 5 individuals just having a conversation. That's how it starts, sharing dialogue. It's like, what do the conversations look like when you're in your house? If they're lopsided or off, you got to do some soul searching.
Right.
It's like, it's always weird to me how people talk about inclusion. If there was inclusion, we wouldn't have to talk about it. So that's my final word. And Mr. Mack, you want to wrap it up?
Take it away.
I just put it like this. I am so thankful to you guys for the opportunity to share the story of my father.
Absolutely.
And the
Absolutely.
story of People's Beer then and now. And dialogue is what's going to help us, because there's going to take this is a conversation that sometimes could be kind of hard, but there's going to have to be difficult conversations made in America, and some things going to have to be done. There's going to have to be, a myth, and then there's going to have to be some restitution for what was done, because actually, if I know slavery didn't end. See, we in our school, in our history books, they tell us when slavery ended, but it didn't. 80 years after that, they were still doing slavery. A Black person on the street corner could be arrested, put in jail as a prisoner for standing on a street corner, and then sold to U.S. Steel and work in U.S. Steel coal mines until he died. Hundreds of thousands. And they said that we were free. You want to know who made America great? All that free labor.
Yeah.
Restitution has to be made, and America has to look at its heart and change its heart. Every time it does, America repels against it, because it's hard to look at the ugliness of the dark side of who we are. Nobody's perfect. But me as a father, I tell my son, you have to stand up for what you did. If you make a mistake, you don't run from it. You stand up for it and you make a change. What are you going to be doing? What are you going to do differently? And so I would say to America, what are you going to do different? We have an opportunity now to make a change. God is in control. There's a reason why we have COVID-19. There's a reason why we have racial strife. There's a reason why we have economic collapse, the 3 heads of destruction falling down at one time. If not so, this election wouldn't have went this way. I can tell you that right now. So there's purpose and a plan. But what are we going to do with this second chance we've got? Are we going to do something for a couple of years and then we say, oh, it's reverse discrimination? You've been discriminating us for 400 years. How is it reverse discrimination when we get a couple of people in college? That's just, again, getting us to fight each other so you can't see what's going on. I got eyes wide open. I'm teaching other people to have eyes wide open, but not to hate, but to accomplish a goal of, we are Americans, all of us. We fight for each other. We fight for our rights. See, I'm not asking for any rights. I'm not no better than anybody else. So I'm not asking for anything that the Constitution doesn't give to everybody. I'm just asking for the same rights and the same opportunity. Because I've seen through my father how he got his opportunities taken away. And he still loved, and he still fought on, and he still taught his children to love. Get an education. Don't be stupid. But go out there and get your grind on and fight on. And that's what I'm doing. That's what my children, all of them in college right now, you know, to make a difference. And I'm helping other kids because it's not about me, myself, and I. So I thank you guys. It's powerful. It's a powerful. I thank you for this. And for those who watching, just take a self-examination. What kind of country we want to live in? What kind of country do you want your grandchildren to live in? One filled with hate or filled with love? That's all.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. Absolutely incredible story. We really look forward to the future you guys have at Oak Park and really this.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, absolutely.
If in fact, well, not if, when the books come out, could I come back and talk with you guys?
There is you are always welcome, always.
Thank you. All right.
Absolutely.
Much love. Thank you, man.
So guys, thank you again. Let's do a little final cheers here. Thanks for taking the time for, being here. And again, we hope to spread the word as much as we can, and best of luck.
Mr. Mack.
You know, I didn't drink until this.
I know.
So Rick, Steve, thank you guys, man. Maybe we can do a follow-up down the road just to see where things are.
Absolutely.
Thank you for responding and giving us the opportunity to sit down and share our story and Mr. Mack's story. But man, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys.
We are here, and honestly, we will definitely keep in touch. There's no question.
Okay.
All right, guys.
All right.
Thanks again.
Appreciate it. All right.
Take it easy, guys.
Yep.